So what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So I have been extremely busy, so today's video is not going to have like any heavy editing. I just wanted to record something to give you guys some content. And so today it's going to be more like a story time video on my channel. I'm going to talk about this thread I did, essentially explaining the narrative source of Goku and Vegeta's relationship as a representation of duality, which is very, very common in Dragon Ball. There's all kinds of representations of duality throughout Dragon Ball, and that's what I'm going to be discussing today. And essentially, the source of Goku and Vegeta's relationship is the fact that they are both based on the same character. The story starts off with Wukong essentially feeling the presence of someone watching him since he's been born. And we find out later on who this character is, but he's essentially like an all-knowing, omnipotent, godlike figure. So, in this little episode of Journey to the West, Sun Wukong has a dream where he essentially temporarily returns in his dream to the person that he used to be. Now, in this dream, of course, Heaven is not happy to see Sun Wukong in his previous form, and they're ready to destroy him. And Sun Wukong says that he's been waiting for this moment for centuries, and that he's going to taste the blood of those who make his blood boil. The Jade Emperor, of course, threatens him and tells him to die, calls him a vicious creature, and then Sun Wukong responds, "We're all vicious creatures. You've just learned how to disguise it. You treated me like a monster or a demon from the day we met, so I'm going to be the devil you long for." And he essentially goes on to tell the Jade Emperor that the Jade Emperor has provoked his viciousness and that he has left him with no choice but to accept his true nature. Now, you'll notice this is essentially a role reversal of what happened with Zamasu, and so Toriyama did that on purpose. The story that you're seeing play out here is literally the basis of what Toriyama used for Zamasu, but it's essentially a role reversal. And what happens here is cool because it's essentially the type of nature that Zamasu feared. That is the part of Sun Wukong's nature that he is embracing at this point. So it's really cool to think about in that way. So in the dream, Sun Wukong is just bodying everyone who threatens him along his path to taking over Heaven. You can literally see the bodies lined up, dead, blood splattered all across the ground. So this is essentially Sun Wukong's inner demon nature. That's essentially what you're seeing here. It's the same thing that Goku's Great Ape form represents. It's essentially the part of Sun Wukong's nature that causes him to be destructive and violent. And this part of his nature is normally activated due to danger to his life and to his survival and to his livelihood, which is essentially something that's taught in martial arts. Whenever you're put in a life or death situation, there's part of yourself that is activated that is very violent and destructive, and that is the part of yourself that Sun Wukong actually represents here. Suddenly, Sun Wukong meets a copy of himself, and this copy just so happens to be the more vicious version of Sun Wukong being manifested as an actual being, right? That's why you'll notice here that, you know, the glowing red eyes are present for Sun Wukong because he is the one who was destroying all of his enemies, running through Heaven, killing everyone. But through doing that, he manifested a copy of himself who is essentially exactly like who he used to be. Because at this point, remember, this is a dream, right? And in this dream, Sun Wukong is killed by his inner demon nature. He actually loses to his inner demon nature. And you got to remember that this is a dream and that Sun Wukong is not like this anymore. He's changed, and we're about to see that firsthand. So after waking up from his dream, Sun Wukong returns to his master, and his master wants absolutely nothing to do with him. And Sun Wukong doesn't understand why, because at this point in the story, he has gained a great respect for his master. His master has started to influence him greatly, morally, and just in terms of his overall character. So he cannot understand why Tripitaka wants absolutely nothing to do with him. Like, he can't understand it at all. So apparently, something has happened while Sun Wukong was asleep. So essentially, his master tells him, "I don't want anything to do with you. Leave, get away from me. I'm done with you," right? So to essentially remedy Sun Wukong's confusion, Pigsley and Sandy decide to take him to the scene of the crime, so to speak, the scene where his master chose to essentially have nothing to do with him anymore. And when we get to this area, you'll see that Sun Wukong has viciously murdered all the bandits and demons and everyone that threatened them in this scenario. And this is something that, of course, Tripitaka has been trying to tell Sun Wukong to gain control of the entire story. So Tripitaka essentially saw Sun Wukong as a purified version of his inner demons, and it scared the hell out of him. They were so scared that they thought if they spoke, that Sun Wukong would kill them as well. He was that vicious at the time. This is essentially kind of like the purified evil of Sun Wukong, which none of these characters have really met, because by the time Tripitaka met Sun Wukong, he did go through a symbolic reincarnation by being sealed under 5 Faces Mountain by the Buddha. So he was a little bit different. His inner nature would come out every once in a while, and he would murder people, and Song Zhang would be like, or Tripitaka would be like, nah, dude, like, if you're going to do that, you're not going to be on the trip with me, essentially. So this is a exaggerated form of what Tripitaka had saw in the past. He had seen a glimpse of Sun Wukong being like this, but he had never seen the actual demonic aspect of Sun Wukong's character at full force. So essentially, Pigsy asks Tripitaka, like, are you just going to forgive him? What are we going to do here? And he's like, I can't forgive him. If he's going to keep giving into his evil urges, I just can't forgive him. And Sun Wukong can't remember anything he did, right? He can't remember any of this and that, and you'll find out why. And he's also shocked that, you know, he found the dead bodies of the demons and the bandits who attacked them. And Pigsy just goes on to tell him just how ridiculously ruthless and merciless he was. Keep in mind that at the beginning of Journey to the West, Sun Wukong would have done this without hesitation. He wouldn't have acted as angry and demonic, but he would have killed people easily without thinking about it to protect his master. And in this case, it was much, much, much more vicious, right? So, and again, Sun Wukong cannot believe that he committed such an act, and that is because this is after Sun Wukong has started to develop as a being. This is like essentially mid-character development for Sun Wukong. And that's why he can't admit that he's done these horrible atrocities, because at this point, his master's influence on him is starting to take full effect. He's starting to become just as merciful and considerate as his master. So Sun Wukong, quote unquote, then attacks his master, steals the sutras that they need to complete the journey to the west, and runs away. And Sandy discovers Sun Wukong back at his original kingdom where he ruled over everyone, when he was essentially a bandit who tried to take over everything around him. And he essentially tells Sandy that he is going to make the journey to the west by himself, using clones of all the characters to fool the Buddha, so that way he will get all the credit and be worshipped for all eternity, and also attain true Buddhist immortality. Now, this is the aspect of Sun Wukong's character that inspired Vegeta. Sun Wukong at his earliest character development was a bandit who tried to take over the heavens, much like Vegeta tried to take over planets and space. He was inherently violent, vicious, had a massive ego, wanted to be the king of everything. This is Sun Wukong without the principles of martial arts and Buddhism helping him become a better person, and that is what Vegeta is. Vegeta is the most evil version of Sun Wukong, reimagined as a sci-fi modern anime character. And that's really creative on Akira Toriyama's part, because Goku is the exact opposite. Goku is the other end of the spectrum as far as you can go when it comes to Sun Wukong's character development. He is the most merciful, the most considerate, the most compassionate, the most loving, and he just so happens to practice martial arts. So everybody's confused as hell. They don't understand why there's two Wukongs. Nobody can tell who the real Wukong is. So Buddha essentially calls both the Sun Wukongs up to heaven, and while they're on a rampage, they try to use this mirror that reveals the true inner nature of all beings, and both the good and evil versions of Sun Wukong, who have now met each other and fought, etc., have the same inner nature. And this inner nature is reflected through Dragon Ball in the form of the Great Ape transformation. The Great Ape transformation that you see all the time is a representation of Sun Wukong's inner demon nature, and Goku and Vegeta both have that. So when Sun Wukong finally makes his way into the presence of a Buddha, it is revealed that the two Sun Wukongs are essentially the mind at war with itself. They are the dual nature of Sun Wukong fighting each other. That's what they are. And so they're both the real Sun Wukong, but only one is his inner demonic nature. Once the demonic version of Sun Wukong is revealed, Sun Wukong must destroy him in order to recreate himself. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? This is something that has been done countless times in Dragon Ball, especially with Vegeta, during the Majin Vegeta stuff and the current stuff with Ultra Ego Vegeta. Goku subjecting himself to pain, Enkai boosts, things of that nature. This is a ancient principle in martial arts and in Buddhism and in Journey to the West. And Dragon Ball plays on this in tons and tons and tons of different ways. Same way it plays on reincarnation via the rebirth of characters and planets and stuff like that. This concept is so important to the principles of martial arts and of Buddhism that Toriyama plays on this constantly in his series, because this is a huge part of Journey to the West. This is probably one of the most important aspects of Journey to the West. So the Buddha tells Sun Wukong that imposter was one of several confused minds that grew out of the things you've done as a result of your wild nature. So essentially it's guilt. The purpose of meditation is to unify those minds into a single consciousness, but often the mind fights these efforts, and the worst parts of your mind, malice, greed, envy, create a false self. It's still Wukong. It's just not who he is anymore. So Buddha goes on to say, after all this time you have finally succeeded in eliminating the part of your mind that caused such trouble. Now you will be able to navigate the path to nirvana with greater clarity. But you must never cease in your efforts to unify in your mind both good deeds and evil deeds. This is something else that Dragon Ball plays on constantly. Piccolo and Kami merging. Goku taking on the pride of his race in order to become a Super Saiyan. Goku's version of Ultra Instinct, where he balances his nature as a Saiyan with his nature as an Earthling. Super Saiyan 4. This is something that Dragon Ball continuously plays on over and over and over again, because this is a core principle aspect of Journey to the West that influence martial arts. You have to accept the fact that you're a violent creature by nature, so you can use that violence with pure intentions as a martial artist. This story, these teachings, reflect and influenced the teachings of martial arts in the future, but were also influenced by martial arts itself to begin with. So this story is ridiculously important in terms of understanding a lot of the narrative themes and things that Akira Toriyama chooses to play on in Dragon Ball. So for all of you who have been wondering what comic I use in my videos, here it is by Wei Dongshan. It's The Monkey King, Birth of the Stone Monkey. It is an amazing comic. It's probably my favorite comic book iteration of Journey to the West. So if you want to check it out, you can find it online. This is it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.